King.
Hey, we back. We are back. We are back.
We are here. We are here. We know people are preparing for the holidays, but guess what? That's why we came back because we want
But
to talk about
these holidays, we have our experiences, don't we?
about
We
it.
have our experiences with these holidays.
Yes. Look, tonight we're going to talk about holiday hearts and hidden hurts,
Getting hurt.
navigating relationships during the holiday. We're going to talk about that. It's so funny. And I want to start with this because every holiday, whether our granddad had to chop down an old Charlie Brown Christmas tree, at a Christmas tree, like a pine tree. My mom always wanted like a real live pine tree.
Make
But
sure you have
bro,
our
I've never had a real tree. Never.
wow,
To this day, I've never had a real tree. I
wow.
always, even Tony would be like, why you don't want a real Christmas tree? And I just never could understand it. And no lie, last week I was riding by some real Christmas trees and the smell and the scenery of 8th Street hit me. And I called my husband immediately and said,
Gotta get a tree.
I understand now why I've never wanted a real
Oh wow.
Christmas
Oh
tree.
wow.
It has nothing to do with the mess. It has nothing to do with the smell of pine. It had everything to do with the memory of the holidays. And
That's
I thought
interesting.
that was so crazy.
That's interesting because we've had some, but it's not because I wanted them. But now that you say that, I yeah, it could be because of I didn't want it because of the memory of
Mhm.
what it like.
Yeah.
There was nothing to at times to put under the tree, but you know, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like I've been fine with them putting up a fake tree.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just moving on.
But bro, I'm like 45 and it has taken this long for me to just realize it's just the memory that I have from it.
So you telling me that memory can have a smell?
Yes, cuz
That's big.
I'm in my car riding and that hit me. That smell
Triggered by a smell.
just
Triggered by a smell. That's big. And a lot of times people don't think, they think it's always a person or something like that. But a smell can trigger a wound, it can trigger a scar, it
yeah.
can trigger an emotion, it can trigger a pain. Just a smell. It can
Yeah.
trigger that past. It can bring that past to the present real quick.
Yeah, it was insane, bro. Insane. I'm just so excited about tonight because I just feel like it's just we've lived through these.
We've lived through this.
So it's like to be able to sit here and talk about it, not that we're perfect with it, because
No.
like I said, something just happened last week that I didn't even know was still there.
Still
You
there.
know, but it's just so crazy, just how their attitudes and their emotions and different things change during the holiday season when sometimes we're like, you should be happy. Like, this is the season of cheer. This is the season of joy. Yet sometimes you run into people that don't have that joyous spirit or they're not cheerful and we're trying to figure it out. Like, myself, I'd be like, man, I'm so excited, for winter break. But then you have other people who are like Scrooges.
They
They're
dread
not
the this. They dread.
excited. Yeah, but it could be a reason why. So we're gonna really talk about the reasons why
Reason.
you may have people that are not excited about the holiday season. Let's dive into this, bro, because one thing that we know when it's winter break, you work at the college, I work in education, so we have time off. For
Mhm.
us, we're thrilled about that time off.
Yes.
But for others, time slows down,
Hmm.
routines change, and you're basically faced with life. You don't have things that can kind of, basically get you going or busy, have you busy and not having to focus on life. And sometimes that itself can bring out things during this season. So let's talk about
Yeah.
just how buried emotions may appear during this season, during this time.
The holidays are traumatic for many, even whether you recognize it or not. And I think that's the issue. A lot of people don't know that the holiday time is traumatic because whether it's Christmas and we know the reason we celebrate Christmas and
Mhm.
what we believe the purpose behind it. But when you look at the world, when you look at society, it's become an opportunity to market another
Yeah,
brand. And
yeah,
so people get so stressed out because they're trying to market or support this brand that has nothing to do with, I'm talking to people of faith, that has
yeah.
nothing to do with what they believe. So I'm
Wow.
stressed out because I can't get a gift for my spouse or my
Mhm.
significant other or my children. So I'm working and I'm about to go in debt. You gotta understand this. So
Yeah,
we create, for a lot of times we're gonna talk so much about the trauma and the wounds and the scars that it opens up, but we have to also understand we have to be held accountable for the trauma
yeah,
that we create ourselves in this present time, trying to do things that we're not necessarily supposed to do. That's
yeah,
not a part of what we believe, but we want to do what everybody else is doing. And
yeah,
so it's like, okay, I got to work a little extra because I got to get this extra money. I
yeah.
got to do, and now before you know it, when you should be enjoying this season, you're stressed out about it. And so
Wow,
you find yourself in bondage to a season that should be a season of peace, should be a season of
wow.
joy, hope, and love. But you living in a life of bondage because you're trying to do something outside of the scope of what this season actually represents.
And you said a mouthful because I used to be there. When you grow up and all you wanted as a child was a Christmas tree full of gifts, you become an adult and that is what you want to give your children. You're like, I didn't have this stuff, so we're going to have just a tree full of gifts, because it's not so much about your children, but it's so much of you trying to live through your children because of what you didn't have.
Just oh my
So I don't know who I'm talking to, but you have to be mindful of that. And you're going to have a rude awakening because sometimes we try to relive our lives through our children, and the children that you create because of that, you're going to regret that. Like, so you just have to be so careful with doing that. I remember doing that with my oldest. I just had all these gifts, and he kept saying, "What's next? What's next?" He wasn't even caring so much about the gifts.
you're
It's
going,
just,
you're getting ready
what's
to go.
next? So it's like, even as a little child, he was 4 or 5, he wasn't even being pleased or satisfied. He just wanted the gifts to keep coming. And that was an eye opener to me, and that really changed the trajectory for our Christmas season. Because I'm like, I'm living through my child and I'm creating a beast, if I keep doing this. So,
Create instant gratification as well.
yeah.
Creating, letting them know that if I do, because a lot of times we want to do things for them because they've done well or done things that they're supposed to do. But when you were talking, this came to my mind. We do our Light of Joy Christmas toy giveaway every year, and it's
Mhm.
one of the beautiful things. I enjoy it. I get to dress up as Santa Claus. Please
You
don't
didn't
throw
have on
rocks.
your Jordans this year, though.
Yeah. Oh, I did. I did. They were
Oh,
all black. They were all black. They had a red one. They were all black. And I got a whole lot of Santa Clauses in black. I got a whole lot of that. You're not Santa Claus. But it was so wonderful and hard. It was hard one. But the thing that I want to get to is this. We stopped letting parents come in. And the reason we don't let parents come in is
wow.
because parents try to choose for the kids.
Wow.
And what happens is a kid will come in there and see something so that you would think as a parent is so minute. You could get that at the Dollar Tree. You could get that at the Dollars, get something so simple. But the kid is so excited about having it. But you want
Mhm.
the kid to get the scooter or the little forward, like all these different types of toys. But the kid doesn't want that. The
Mhm.
child doesn't want that. And so I want to say what happens is we become, as parents, we become traumatized because we're so stuck on giving our kids something that they only find gratification in for a day. They only find gratification there for a week, no longer than a month, and then we're asking them, "Where is the gift that I bought?" Where they can't even find. They
Been
have
there.
no clue
Yeah.
because it meant nothing to them. It only meant something to you. And so you went out, you spent all your hard-earned money to get them something that gave them instant gratification, but nothing that would sustain them as it pertains to longevity. So we got to be mindful of that. We will create our own trauma, our own heartbreak, our own heartbreak, because we're trying to do something for a child that doesn't even understand what's actually taking place.
Wow. Wow. That is crazy. That and it's so true. It's so true. And let's talk about that because we all have our own experiences. And I think it kind of opened up for us when all of us as siblings got a chance to be on the podcast
Mhm.
together and talk about our own experiences. And who knew that just the holidays would come up with
Come up, yeah.
several of our siblings. But let's talk about how those past dysfunctions make holiday gatherings be quite difficult
Mhm.
because a lot of times we just go on and on and on, and you don't address those. But let's talk about what those past dysfunctions can do for the holidays that we go through right now.
Because dysfunction doesn't disappear during the holidays, it gets
Mhm.
magnified.
Wow.
And so what happens is that unresolved trauma now has an opportunity to resurface itself.
Wow.
As we would say, sometimes it rears its ugly head. So we got to understand that these memories, they carry weight. They carry a weight. And for many of us, the holidays, they reopen wounds that we try to keep hidden or we try to keep closed. So they
Mhm.
reveal scars that we want no one to know about. So these holiday gatherings can force proximity. You got to think about this now. These
Mhm.
holiday gatherings can force proximity with people connected to our pain, with people
Wow.
connected to our neglect, with people connected to our abuse, our abandonment, or our betrayal. So that's what it does. But you know the thing about it, we're still expected to smile.
Right.
We're still expected to smile. We're still expected to be happy. But that trauma is triggered. I can remember these holidays, and it's like, okay, you got to take your father something. Take him a plate. Your
Yeah.
stepfather is saying, take your father a plate. You know what I'm
Uh,
saying? That means that now it means something to me.
yeah.
Like, man, that was a man. He was okay, take your father something, make sure he's good. Go and see him. Go because now you gotta understand we have to when we do that, we gotta confront that trauma. We gotta
Yeah.
confront the trauma of those Christmases when we had gifts, but those gifts went missing. And
Wow.
you had something and you may have looked and like, man, that looked like something that was in our house, but we no longer have it now because it was taken away because of certain things. So, but you try to smile through it, you try and laugh through it, but it becomes a performance. Don't celebrate. Come on now, it becomes a performance because deep
Wow.
down inside you're hurting because of what taken place and
Mm,
that joy that you're trying to feel that it's not genuine. It doesn't
mm,
come from a genuine place. So the holidays don't if you're
wow.
not careful, it's like putting your trauma on repeat.
Wow.
It's like putting your trauma on repeat. So you
So
gotta be
let's
careful.
so in doing that because traditions are repetitive.
Hmm.
If I'm
You know
hearing
you own it. You own
like
it.
and people have a hard time breaking tradition.
Tradition.
So how do you navigate through that while protecting yourself spiritually and mentally and physically? Because even when you think about it on the spiritual side, sometimes you have families, their celebrations are not things that are just good for your spirit, but it's tradition.
But it's
It's like
tradition.
what your family has always done. So how do you navigate through that without feeling like you're abandoning your family tradition?
That's big because a lot of us are restoring when it comes to traditions. We're restoring a tradition rather than creating an opportunity for restoration.
Wow.
So yeah, so we're restoring the when that tradition comes up, it should be an opportunity for restoration to take place because it's an
Mhm.
opportunity for let me face this so I can hear from this. But because of the
Mhm.
way we operate when it comes to our traditions, we're just restoring what was old, and now what happened is being replayed, relived, revived, and renewed within my mind and in my spirit. So when I should be getting restoration, our restoring of that
Wow.
tradition is now taking place within me. So what happens is we honor family traditions, and in doing that, a lot of times you got to come to grips with the fact that when you honor these traditions, is as if you're protect. You have to be mindful that you protect your mental and your emotional health. A lot of
Yeah.
times people think like when you start talking about my mental and my emotional, you got to protect that. I always tell people now I'm at that stage in my life where it's about protecting my peace. So in order to do that,
Yeah.
it requires not only wisdom when you're
Mhm.
dealing with these traditions, but it also requires boundaries. A lot of
Right.
times people don't want to hear that because when you start setting boundaries, now you stuck up, now you arrogant, now you bougie, now you think you're better than everybody because you start creating boundaries. But you have to understand these family traditions, if you're not careful, they'll perpetrate a pain on you. Not that
Wow.
they're meant to, but they'll perpetrate that pain on you, and that tradition it'll repeatedly just trigger. It'll trigger
Wow.
something within you, and so honoring your family does. This is good for somebody. Honoring your family doesn't mean ignoring your well-being.
Wow. True.
So a lot of times we say, well, this is what we do, so I gotta honor this, but it's going to affect your well-being. Now, if it's going
Right.
to affect my well-being, I'm not. I gotta remove myself from that
Mhm.
tradition. Jesus himself withdrew from crowds. Because a lot
Wow.
of times we think like I'm that one who, if I'm into a certain environment, it's hey, what's up? How y'all doing? And when I see certain things going on, now I have to remove myself
Yes.
because I don't do that. That's not a part.
Right.
That may be something that y'all do, but I don't do that. So I'm removing myself. So respect can coexist with restraint. You got to learn how to
Wow.
restrain. The two can coexist. The two can coexist. You can honor where you come from without harming who you're becoming. Do
Wow.
that. You have to be able to do that. Honor where you come from, but you gotta protect who you're becoming because true honor deserves your dignity. Uh-huh.
Yes.
And matter of fact, and theirs, because
Yeah.
that's honor. Like I need them to see me and be like, you know what, man, I wanted Cuz to get down with me, but I respect that. He
Right.
carries a certain standard, and he wasn't stupid. He wouldn't come down because he has to hold up that standard. So I didn't like it then, but I understand now.
Yes, yes. This is something else that's really big because, sometimes people get into relationships and marriages and they don't really understand,
Mm.
some of those dynamics of the holidays. I could talk about, myself because of my husband's background. Holidays were non existent for him. Like they didn't celebrate holidays, but then he gets into a family and we're like always together for holidays. And it's like, what do you mean you just saw them Thanksgiving and we gonna see them Christmas and we go, like and we just gonna be together all day and like that was something that was very difficult for him. So, even when you're talking about holidays as couples supporting each other
Mm.
through those family dysfunctions, like I had to not be selfish because the selfish part of me is like, well, heck, you can stay home and I'm gonna go because this is what
This is what we
my
do.
family, what we do. But it is so good to make sure that we're supporting our spouses who have to go into they're back to home to their families that are dysfunctional, or if they are coming into our families and they're not used to the dynamic of how families run, just understanding that and not being selfish,
Mhm.
because at first I can say that I was selfish because I was so used to how our family, function once we
How we
got old.
function. Yeah.
Yeah,
We understand why we function like that because we didn't have, that's all we had.
right.
That's
Yes.
all we had. So it was nothing. And we seen that, but I mean, it wasn't nothing for us to come home and lay on the floor and fall asleep because that was a norm. And so
Mhm.
many, especially for me, for us boys, we would go, it wasn't nothing to sleep on the floor or lay on the, because it was crowded in a full size bed, and when one time it was just three of y'all trying to sleep in one bed, so if somebody could take the floor of the couch, people be like, huh? That was more comfortable. So people didn't understand. Yeah, huh? You sleep on the floor, you sleep on, they can't begin to. So it's my wife was like, y'all lay on the floor, like, it's it's comfortable. When I got to college and I had that hard cart, that hard bed or whatever, and I'm sitting there snoring, and my other roommates, they talk. This was comfortable to me, this felt good. So, but I would say this when it comes to those family dynamics and supporting each other and everything. I would say make now, because look, then it was like, nah, this is what we have to do. But as I look back at it, I would tell someone, choose unity over tradition.
Wow. I love
Choose
that.
unity over the tradition, because you can't help them to understand where you're coming from as it pertains to why your family does what it does if you're not in a place to help them understand. If
Yeah.
you're not, if you're not unified, then there's a level of division there, and so
Hmm.
you can't come to a agreement or understanding. So, and then I say choose empathy over expectation. You know what I'm saying? Try learning why they feel the way they feel. You know what I'm saying? And then help them,
So
and then
true.
understanding that, and then you can help them understand. Well, this may, but this is how, and then you start trying to find this line that where you both can meet.
Yeah.
And understand what's taking place. I would tell you, 20 years ago, I may have been like, forget that, I'm going anywhere. It don't matter what
Right.
you know what I'm saying? This, that. But now, having lived life and being
Yes.
people who have endured different walks and stuff, now I understand better that everybody wasn't raised the way, and what makes no sense to me makes all the sense in the world to them. Why?
Yes.
Because of how we were raised. It's because
Right.
of how we
Right.
were raised. So I say love requires you to honor others' emotional reality.
Yeah.
You gotta honor each other's emotional reality, because you might, don't you get all emotional because their reality is not yours. You
Yeah.
got you have to respect that. The goal is not to survive the holidays, it's to stay connected through them. Here today,
Right.
you fighting now. Yeah, you fighting. You all this you all over Facebook talk about how y'all been together, how y'all love each other, and now y'all done broke up because of a Christmas family function.
Right.
Or y'all not speaking to each other. The house quiet when it should, and feel.
You know what, bro? I would even piggyback on that too, even when it comes to, gift giving and all that, because sometimes couples even go through arguments and
Man,
tough times because they don't understand why you got to buy everybody,
uh,
a gift. And talk about that, because
my,
some
my,
it might be the season where you don't buy
not
everybody.
give, my
Like,
wife is a gift giver. My wife is a gift giver. I was a I like, kids get to a certain age, here go a few dollars, you get what you want. I'm not, and I know people are like, you got to put some thought in this. You
yeah.
get what you want. I'm gonna give you some money, you get whatever you want. But she's a gift giver. I'm the type, like, it ain't about us anyway. It's about him. And then I'm at this stage of my life. I'm tired of I'm not about to let society make merchandise out of me. I'm here to spend all
Right.
my money. You know what I'm saying? Because the prices go up, as we already know. The prices, they're gonna take you 10% off, 20% off. And then you look and you see how they done jack the prices up.
Yeah.
Or you think you're getting the deal when you're really not getting the deal. You're not getting the deal. So if you go get it, wait until after Christmas. Wait until after the holidays. But I say that with gift giving, you have to be to the point of, that's your expectation. Your expectation is not much, because everybody doesn't think the same way. And there comes a season when gifts can't be given. There comes a
Wow.
season when gifts can't be given. You never know. There may be a struggle or different things like that. But my present is, this is how I look at it. My spouse, and my presence is your presence. My present is your presence. That's my
Yes.
present. My present is your presence. Can I get gifts? I'm in a position where I can get gifts and do. I thank God for that. I know what it's like not to be able to, and
Yes.
and that's the craziness of it. When I couldn't, that's when I wanted to. Now that
Yeah.
I can, that's the last thing on my mind.
Yes. Yes.
But it's your presence is my presence.
Yes.
So so we got to be careful, because not meeting expectation, not meeting the gift expectation, because I'm gonna go out here and I'm gonna spend
Big
this
stress for
on you, and then
people.
you come and you want to bring me a shirt and a tie. You know what I'm saying? It's something like, we got problems. So you don't want to stay up your house about no gifts now. Come on now. Y'all stay safe. Y'all stay together.
Oh, this is one that is so challenging for people, because you have so many family members that know I have to set boundaries.
Yes.
And when they voice that they have to set boundaries and the need to set boundaries, it can almost end up causing even more conflict or even more of,
Confrontation.
yeah, So let's talk about how can we help with that. And let's be honest, some family you can't appease them regardless. Some people it's
Regardless.
just no,
I hope y'all listen to hear that. You
yeah,
can't,
appeasing them. Like
they're
they
never
it's
gonna understand.
yeah, they're not gonna understand. But then you have those, and I tell people all the time, communication is so key with talking about those boundaries.
Hmm.
But a lot of times people don't even want to communicate. Like I know people that have their family thinking they're coming and the day of you're waiting and you
No
don't
show.
show up. And that in itself can cause
Most
an
definitely.
even bigger rift. But what you have to learn is just communicate through that.
Yep.
It doesn't have to be like on another level with tone or whatever. You just communicate. Me and my family, we're gonna just be home this
Be
season,
home.
or we're gonna do this. Like communication to me, bro, is the biggest thing that can help with setting those boundaries and not causing any bigger rift than it already is. So,
And I like that because if I could go back, when we were talking before, we was talking about even with our spouses and understanding what triggers them when it comes to their family. That communication is key because when
mhm,
I know what triggers you, I know how to pray for you. And that's why you
right.
got to communicate. If you're not
Yeah.
talking, then here it is. I'm trying to figure out why you all upset, why you mad, and I think you're tripping
Right.
because I don't understand what's going on. I don't understand. But now, if I know and I see something, I know how to intercede. I know how to get in the way. I know how to remove you from the situation, or I know how to start speaking life into you. Hey, now you know.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I could start doing those things. So communication is key there. But listen, when we talking about setting boundaries, you got to set boundaries because if you don't set boundaries, you always open the door to confrontation. So you
Mhm.
got to set those boundaries. Boundaries are not about control because a lot of times people think it's not about control. It's about stewarding your peace.
Yeah.
That's why you have to communicate. That's why it's about stewarding your peace. So if at all possible, Bible tells us to do what? Live peaceably with all men. If all live peaceably with all men. So we have to make sure that we're communicating about the different things that go on and take place. So one of the things that get me personally is I'm a homebody.
Yeah.
I'm a homebody.
We
You
are
don't have to
mother's
come.
children.
You don't have to come.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like so it doesn't. Oh, I'm chilling. I'm watching the game. I'm a homebody. Whereas some people I understand. So you got to know your family. You have
Yeah.
to know your family.
That
So
is
some
so
to some
true.
of your family, it may mean nothing to them when it comes to communicating during the holiday or setting those boundaries. But getting to that part, if I'm not mistaken, you were talking about setting those boundaries. We gotta. I'm looking at it from this part of us as couples making sure that we're communicating to a point to when we get to where we're going, it's not an I situation, it's a we.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's not a them situation, it's a us. And so we have to make sure that we set boundaries and we decide on limits privately before we get to these public gatherings.
Yes.
What's it going to be? How is this going to be? And whether it's my family, it's your family, whoever family, we got to decide on how long we're going to stay. Because sometimes I used to be like, I would stay all day, or I'm the one, this, that. But
Yeah.
how long are we going to stay? How long are we? Those
Yeah.
are conversations that you kind of want to start taking place. I'm at the age now before I can stay till 11 to 12 o'clock at night and go on
Right.
the
Yeah.
road. But now I'm at that stage in my life, I want to be home before dark.
Exactly.
And so we got to communicate about these boundaries early and we got to do it respectfully, not in the heat of the moment, because that's when we get in
Right.
trouble. We start having these conversations in the heat of the moment. So You
And we can't be offended. As you were talking, I all I can do is hear Tony's voice in the back of my head. Who gonna be there? That's
that's
like, who is gonna be there? Like, especially if we go into my mama's house, who gonna be there? Because I'm telling you now, depending on who gonna be there, determines our when we gonna
who
leave.
gonna leave.
Strategy, like, and you can't be offended. And I
Yep.
think that is the biggest thing that I had to grow and mature from, because you want to be offended, but it's like
No,
when you
you can.
talk about
You
things
get to a
ahead
point,
of
you understand.
time. Yeah.
You get to a point, you understand. But that's the part of it. Like that's the part of meeting the spouse halfway. That's the
Yes.
part of it because it's not you anymore. It's not just you. It's the both of you, and you have to decide to meet each other halfway, even during this holiday season. It can't just be about your parents. It can't just be about. It has to be about both. You know what I'm saying? Having to have those conversations and decide, okay, which family are we going to? You know,
Right.
so your family, so if you're accustomed to going to your family, now all of a sudden it's like, okay, we're going to spend time with Tony's family. You can't be offended. They
Right.
want to spend time
Right.
like they're always with you.
Hmm.
So it's like you can't be offended. So those things, it's like it brings out a lot because sometimes people feel like they gotta take ownership. Like this is what we've always done. And if you're gonna be in this family, this is what you have to do. No, you make rules and regulations for your family. You set boundaries for your family. You set expectations for your family. That's what you do. And when you
Yeah.
have a chance to spend time with your other family, you take advantage of that. But you
Yes.
you you got to make the most of that. You can't.
Yeah.
You got to set those boundaries.
And I want to go back to this. We talked about this in another episode, because we talked about forgiveness doesn't mean access. And a lot of times, during the holidays, we are having to be around family or
Yeah.
friends or whatever that, we've had to walk in forgiveness with. But
Mhm.
that doesn't mean access. Like,
Yeah.
I can go in a room, and if I need to be away from somebody, I can speak to you and move on. So let's just talk about that crucial piece, because even people are trying to throw that up. Well, I thought you don't forgiven, this person or that person. Why you can't come if they're here? Or what's the problem? If you're saying you forgiven them. So we see that a lot during this time as well. So let's talk about walking through even that piece, navigating through that.
So this question: have you ever you had the flu or you've had COVID or you had anything like that before?
Yes.
So you felt the effects of it. It made you sick.
Yes.
So if you know it's gonna make you sick, are you gonna keep? Are you gonna keep putting yourself in contact with it?
No.
Okay, so in order for you to stay healed and healthy, you got to make sure that you're in a position in order to stay healed and healthy.
Right.
If the situation presents itself that you have to be in that environment, you'll take the precautions. You'll probably go ahead and take your little medicine or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Do what you need to do. Keep some cough drops on you. You know what I'm
Keep
saying?
it distant.
If you wear a mask and not have the situation, you bring it. You know what I'm saying? But you see what I'm saying?
Keeping
Preventative
that
maintenance.
distance.
So
Social
people
distancing.
social distancing, proximity. You know what I'm saying? That's it, proximity. And you were getting ready to go. I was getting ready to go there. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of times people look at proximity and think just because I forgave you, that means now that I'm willing to be around you.
Right.
I heard it saying if you walk like a duck, it quack like a duck, then it's a duck. So you know
Right.
what I'm saying? Just I know you, you showed me who you are. So I'm just going to keep my distance away from you because that's just because I've forgiven you doesn't mean I give you access.
Right.
And that's what a lot of people think forgiveness is, and they don't understand. That's why they keep getting hurt because you keep getting hurt because you keep giving access to people who keep hurting you.
Wow.
That's why you keep giving them. If you want to stop being hurt, stop giving them access. So
Yes.
just because you're forgiven, I'm not putting myself in a situation for that to take place again. I don't have time for drama. If you all about drama, I ain't got time for that.
Right.
I'm neither gonna excuse myself in your presence or I'm not going to be there. Because I'm not a drama filled person. I'm not a put business. Sometimes people like to put stuff and share their point of view because they want to make themselves look good because they know that's about it. Like I ain't about to fight that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You want to get loud, you want to get ghetto, you want to get that's you. I'm not about to fight that.
Yeah.
So it's like we say, you can't allow anyone to have power or control over your emotions. That's the truth,
Yeah.
because people, that's what people come for that. So it's like you get to the point to where it's like, I'm going to create the dynamic, I'm going to create the environment, I'm going to create the atmosphere. If I want to be in yours, I'll be in it. If I don't, I won't. If I want you in mine, I'll invite you. If I don't come to my house, don't show up, because you're not coming in. I didn't invite you.
That yeah,
And that doesn't mean I don't like you. That doesn't mean I don't
right.
love you. That just means that I want my house to remain peaceably, and I want my stuff to stay in it. I don't want nothing missing. Whatever you bring, I don't want that. But then I don't want that. So it doesn't. People are trying to make you feel guilty because
Yeah.
we get this. Well, if you save, then
Yeah, that
what I'm trying to tell you is that's what I'm trying to do. Stay
yeah.
saved.
Because because I'm walking in wisdom.
Wisdom.
We know right.
So I'm
So
setting boundaries.
right. And that is what wisdom is. That is who, honey. Look, I just was thinking about this and I just want to tell a family member, if you're going to your family member's house and you haven't been cleared to bring another family member that
Oh
they
my
don't
God.
know is coming, don't bring them. Like, because that is not right. Like, that has happened before. Like, I've been at a family member's house and they knew one person was coming and they were okay, but then that person bought another family
About
member
another
that
person.
they wasn't okay. It's not up to you to determine. You have to clear that when you're going to a family member's house. You can't just be like, well, they family too. You family too, so you should be able to that ain't your
That's
house.
not
So
your house.
not everybody got to be on watch.
And, and if you do too, don't wear out your welcome.
Right,
Wear
right.
out your welcome.
Yeah.
You stop. If you're stopping by, stop by.
Yes.
Don't camp out. Stop by. Move on. I mean, I know what it sounds like, because people don't want to hit me, you know what I'm saying? But it's like,
Mhm.
that's just etiquette.
Yeah.
That's just
Yeah.
etiquette, you
It,
know?
yeah.
Because holiday season is a time that people like to try and visit, and there nothing. Hey, that's you knock
Yeah,
on
that's
somebody, if they're
fine.
cordial and they let you in, you come in. All right,
Yeah.
you get on to the next place.
Yeah.
But yeah,
But
you're
it's
not there to
some
spend the
people
night.
you already know we don't want that family member to come. Like because
Yeah,
you didn't want
you
them at your
know,
house.
and
So
then you bring them anyway, and they just double confusion. Everybody looking around like, how did they get here?
listen, this is something that warm.
God, the memory just hit. Boy, memory just
Yes,
hit.
I'm sure we think about the same one. Because it wasn't my house.
Oh
So this
God,
touched my heart because sometimes those of us who may have not lost, a loved one that's close to us, just a lot of times people are dealing with hurts and trauma because of just losing somebody,
yes,
that's just so close to them. And I just a few days ago I posted something that was a funny little reel, and I had just some random person just DM me and just said, just thank you for just putting this out there because it was so full of joy. And we just started having a whole conversation. I don't even know this person. I don't even know where she's from, but older woman just was saying that
it's a
her daughter
blessing.
was in education because everything I post on my business page deals with education for the most part. But it gave her a trigger, but this time it was joy. She was like, this just made me happy because she just was like, she just deal with so much grief,
Yes,
during
yes,
this season. And I don't know her, but I just sent her a prayer. I said, I just speak that you'll just receive more and more joyous moments, during this season, that the Lord will just send people your way so that you can, just have that, that spirit of joy. Sometimes just our presence alone can help people who are navigating through grief. So, too, we have to be mindful of those people that they're
mm,
just not. being sour for nothing, but they are dealing with loss. They're dealing with grief because they've lost a loved one. So let's even talk about that and how faith really is the biggest thing to help people who are hurting due to grief navigate during this holiday season.
I think a lot of times being a person of faith or even, calling yourself a Christian or a child of God, a lot of times when we talk about faith, it gets minimized
Mhm.
but I don't think people really understand how much your faith of a role your faith plays in your walk, not just with Christ, but just in this life.
Yeah.
That's like my faith is like what keeps me together when I should be falling apart.
Wow.
My faith is what keeps me together when this world is torn me down. My faith is what builds me up. My faith is what keeps me strong. My faith is what keeps me going. And so faith anchors your soul when these holidays magnify your moments of grief. Faith
Yeah.
is what the Christmas season. I mean, even we're looking at this Christmas season, we know it as a season of joy, faith.
Mhm.
It reminds us of not presence, but God's presence. The
Yeah.
gift. It reminds us of the gift that keeps on giving. And I need somebody to know if you're listening, this is what my faith tells me. My faith says that the Lord is close to the brokenhearted.
Mm,
He's close to you. God doesn't wait for you to feel like festive. He doesn't wait for you to feel joyous. He meets you right where you are. That's the thing. That's the thing about God. He meets you right. And you need to know that. You may be having a moment. You may be going through a struggle. You may be dealing with that situation and that circumstance, but God will meet you right where you are. Your faith is what gives a voice to your pain when your smile feels forced. You ever felt like I'm forced to smile? I'm forced to be happy. I'm forced to be, but your faith is what gives it. How can you smile? How can you,
yeah.
we say in the church, how can you worship? How can you praise?
Right.
But it's the
Yeah.
same thing when you're dealing with these moments of grief. It's your faith. When your strength feels thin, when you feel
Mm,
weak, it's your faith that steps in. It allows you to cry without shame. So I'll tell anybody,
right.
you got to cry, you cry. There's no shame in it. It allows you to cry without shame. It causes you to hope without pretending.
Mhm.
That's what your faith does. I don't have to pretend this. I don't have to pretend this. I believe this. I live this. I walk this. I'm the evidence of what faith is. That's my
Wow.
life. I'm
Wow.
evidence of what faith does. I'm
Yeah.
the evidence of answered prayer.
Yeah.
I'm the evidence of dedication and a life that's committed, a lifestyle that's committed and pleasing to God. Just not my life, but the life of my mother and how
Mm,
she laid before God and tarried. And that's what faith does. So faith doesn't just promise, it doesn't promise a pain-free holiday, but it
right.
promises that you won't have to walk through it alone, family.
Amen.
You don't have to walk through it alone. So I need you to understand that faith is not just a word that we throw out there when we just say
Mhm.
just because it sounds right or at a time it may make us feel good. But this is our walk with Christ. This
Yeah.
is a faith walk. We
Yeah.
walk by faith and
Mhm.
not by sight.
Right.
You're not going to understand everything. It won't always make sense. You won't always feel good. Sometimes you're going to want to break down. Sometimes you're going to want to give. Sometimes you're going to have moments like we're talking about with this
Yeah.
grief, with this loneliness, and this disappointment. But if you can keep the faith, keep
Yes.
the faith. So if I
Mhm.
can tell you anything, family, I'm telling you, keep the faith. When you're dealing with these, keep the faith, knowing that He promised He would never leave you. He promised He would never
Yeah.
forsake you. He promised He would be with you. He told you, hey, when you're feeling that heavy weight, He said, cast your cares upon me. You don't have to carry. You're trying to carry something that you're not even supposed to be carrying. And I
Wow.
know it gets hard. I know it's hard because you want to hold on to it because you feel like that's a memory. I gotta hold on to this. But if it's draining you, if it's straining you, if it's stressing
Wow.
you, you gotta cast it. You gotta give it to him. He say, my yoke. He say, learn of me. My yoke is easy, and my burden is light. Family, I
Man.
need to see the faith.
Man, and I'm going to end it at that because that is, the biggest thing for us, just keeping the faith,
The faith.
even through this season. Thank God for Jesus that we're even able to, be in faith and live a faith walk, live this type of
Don't
faith.
let this season make you minimize who this season is really about.
Yes.
And that's what tends to happen.
Mhm.
That's why that's why we deal with so much trauma.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
why our wounds continue to be reopened. That's why we continue to be scarred. That's why we continue to be disappointed. It's because we minimize who this season is actually
Yes.
about.
Yes.
Jesus is the reason for the season.
Yes.
That's what's supposed to be maximized. Everything else is minimized. It's not what you can do for your spouse, it's not what you can do for your kids, but it's a reminder of a redeemer who is sent to save the world. Emmanuel, God with us. So
Yeah.
I'm telling you, there's ways around this. We have to be careful because we keep recreating or reestablishing or renewing a cycle that should have been ended because we keep on opening that door. We keep on opening that wound because we make it about us and what we want and what we desire when it's never about us. It's all about Him.
Yes, yes, yes. So, that has changed my whole life, just having that perspective.
Yeah.
Like, just it is not about any of that stuff. And we're not knocking people,
Nope.
but when you truly, truly understand, the reason for the season, it'll even change your children's lives when you start teaching them
Teaching them.
about, the true meaning of Christmas, um, because we receive the biggest gift of all. But what does he do? He is the servant of all.
Mhm.
So really it's a season of serving, not about commercialism of gifts, but where can you serve?
And where
Who
can
can you
you
bless?
And two, I would encourage somebody like during this season, I really would encourage you to take the time to try and give to somebody who's less fortunate.
Mm,
When you think about the true meaning of the season, that's why I enjoy those little kids lighting up,
mhm.
knowing that that may be the best gift or the only gift. These different giveaways may be the only gifts that they're able to get for
Wow.
Christmas.
Mhm.
Knowing what it felt like to, I laugh and I talk trash about that skull cap and them
Yeah.
black church socks, but knowing sometimes that was the gift.
Mhm. Yep.
That was the gift. I used to be upset with mom. She would go and want to spend all her money trying, but then she said, and it was just like, man, I don't want to doing this. But then in my heart, I understood I couldn't give to y'all. So at
Mm,
least let me give. So I understand. She want to
yeah.
get everybody, even though it's you're trying to say, Mama, don't worry about that. But
Yeah.
you understand when you've
Yeah.
been in a situation for years where you maybe were able to get your kids a lot of stuff, but because of addictions, it went missing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I'm
Mm.
saying? And you did so it would look like it was wasted money or it was in vain. So a lot of times when I'm sitting here and we're talking about we're making a statement about we didn't have anything for Christmas really, it wasn't because our mom didn't make an attempt to get us something. Sometimes there were other issues in place that caused us not to have things.
Right.
So I don't want her putting that pressure on herself, making her feel like but you know what I'm saying? I
Yeah. Yeah.
understand. I do. I understand. And
Yeah.
and trying to get the kids that it's not about this. It's not about these gifts. It's not about it's he's the reason.
The season. Yes. Well, look, people, as you are gathering with your families and you're, finding peace and joy during this holiday season, just keep that in remembrance of the true meaning of Christmas. We
Amen.
just thank God for sending Jesus Christ. Like, that is the biggest and most important gift of all right, y'all. Until next time, be blessed.
Be blessed, family.
Peace. Merry
Peace. Merry
Christmas.
Christmas. Happy New Year.
Yeah.